I'm going to show you how I made these souvenir hammers for one of the clubs at the college I work for, the Habitat for Humanity group at Washington College. Price was definitely a concern for the student club, and they wanted to get some really inexpensive hammers. And so that's one thing I'll mention, is that you do get what you pay for sometimes, and from one hammer to the next, the wood grain was kind of inconsistent sometimes. Some of them had cleaner grain, some of them weren't quite as good for etching on. And since we purchased these online, we didn't really get a chance to kind of hand select each one of them. So the first thing I had to do was to clean up the hammer's handles and get them ready for etching. And so the stickers, some of them I just peeled it off, some of them I scraped it off. The ones I peeled off, it left a lot of residue anyway, so I kind of had to do this process. And I'm just using the sort of squared off side of a chisel. It works pretty well as a scraper. And I'm just going along scraping the label itself. And then while I'm at it, I'm also scraping off the kind of crappy enamel, that's sprayed onto these. It's not a very smooth, clean enamel coating. And since the laser kind of has to fight through that enamel layer and it isn't really consistently sprayed on, it's going to look better if I just sort of sand it off anyway. And then that way I'll go ahead and, put on a nice new coat of enamel when I'm finished. So then next I'm just using some sandpaper and going over all of the wood basically to take off that enamel and kind of smooth out the wood. The logo is provided to me in vector format, so I just send it over to RDWorks and set my levels for etching it, and then just transferred it over to my laser. I think I had it with my 100-watt tube set to 20 to 30 power, or 30% power, and my speed was at 200 millimeters per second. When you're working with repeated things, like in this case I had 5 hammers that I was etching, you definitely want to set up some kind of a jig, or in this case I'm just using some weights to help me line it up and then give me sort of something to guide the next one that will be put in exactly the same place. And that just helps so that way when you align it, and then you might have to make a minor adjustment, like right here, I'm seeing that it's not quite aligned, and I'll rotate it just a tiny bit. And then my preview, I can see that it's going to line up just the way I like it on the handle. And then after you get it just right, you don't have to do it every time with each subsequent hammer, so I can just etch it. And it's not a super important thing here, but just I'll make a note that these are all sort of etched for a right-handed person, in the way that if you're holding it in your right hand, your open hand like reveals the logo. So it's not like it's completely on the back side of the handle when you rotate your hand to be able to look at it. And after I etch it, I'll come in with a paper towel with some denatured alcohol, and that helps to dissolve and kind of wipe off the smoky residue that you'll see that gets left behind, and makes it a little bit easier because next I'll be sanding it, and if I can just dissolve that stuff, it doesn't have to get sanded off. And so here I'm just going over it with some 400 grit paper just to give it that one last nice finish before I spray it. I do wrap the tops of the steel part of the hammer with some blue tape, just so that way I don't spray it right onto it. And I'm just using some Minwax clear satin lacquer, and it just goes all nice and easy. It doesn't take a lot of time between the coats, and I'll do a couple of coats here. So I just got them hanging by the heads from some string. I'm just using a fishing rod here, but you could use really anything. And so just going over them lightly, and the results look pretty good. So again, with 5 different hammers, you can see that the wood grain doesn't always take etching quite as well in some as others. So this is one of those things where if you really wanted to make sure that you're getting a hammer, or I guess a wood grain of a handle that takes the etching really well, going someplace where you can pick them in person may be your best bet. But in this case, it worked out pretty well for us. And so these are the gifts that the seniors of Habitat for Humanity at Washington College get after the conclusion of their years of participating in Habitat for Humanity. So I hope this video has been helpful in showing you how you can use your laser to make some nice custom gifts for people. And this was a 100-watt laser, but again, this could be done easily with any hobby grade laser. It just takes a little bit longer. Thanks a lot for watching.